Welcome to the Living to Thrive with Cancer podcast. I'm Catherine White, cancer coach and author of Living to Thrive, a holistic guide to living with cancer. This is the place where we trade fear for hope, confusion for clarity, and overwhelm for empowered action. Whether you're newly diagnosed, living with cancer, or navigating life beyond it, I'll share tools, insights, and real-life inspiration to help you create a life that feels good to live right now in the middle of it all. Let's thrive together. Welcome to the Living to Thrive with Cancer podcast. I'm Catherine White, stage 4 colon cancer thriver, author of Living to Thrive, a holistic guide to living with cancer, your cancer coach, and someone who has walked this path from shock and fear to strength and purpose. If you are new here, welcome. This is a place for anyone who is living with cancer, whether you are newly diagnosed, moving through treatment, or learning how to rebuild your life on the other side. It is also a space for caregivers who want to show up well for someone they love. The mission here is always the same: to help you move from survivor to thriver, one intentional action at a time. In today's episode, I'm talking with Dr. Scott Adams, or Scott as he likes to be called, and Peter Linnaeus from Cancer Fatigue Services. Scott is a physiologist and scientist with over 15 years of experience delivering and testing the effects of exercise-based interventions for people living with and after cancer. In addition to his scientific work, Scott has founded and led cancer rehabilitation and multifaceted biopsychosocial support services in hospital and community-based settings. As a scientist, Scott is extremely fortunate to have worked with top research teams within hospital, university, and community settings across North America. His research focused on understanding how to predict, identify, minimize, and treat some of the most common and debilitating side effects of cancer treatment, like fatigue and its major causes. For over the past 15 plus years, Scott, time and again, has witnessed the power of exercise-based multidisciplinary interventions to transform lives and restore hope for people living with and after cancer. And because we like to switch things up a little bit here at the podcast, I have a second guest joining us, Peter Linnaeus, who you may remember from our talk about getting cancer as a young adult back in January. Peter is a passionate advocate, public speaker, and media professional committed to amplifying the voices of those navigating life-altering health and social challenges. At Cancer Fatigue Services, Peter leads advocacy and engagement, ensuring that those facing post-treatment fatigue have access to the support and resources they need. He is dedicated to breaking down barriers to care and reshaping the narrative around cancer recovery, emphasizing that fatigue should not be an accepted norm, but a challenge that can be overcome. In this episode, we are going to look at cancer fatigue, what it is and why it happens, how cancer-related fatigue impacts your life, and the work that Dr. Scott, or Scott, and Peter are doing at Cancer Fatigue Services. Woo, that was a ton. Welcome, both of you.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks. I love the fact you invited me back. Thank you.
I'm so happy that you are here. And I know you two are like a dynamic team along with all of the other people at Cancer Fatigue Services. So I think it's just a really nice compliment to have both of you here. So we are going to get into some questions because the listeners are always very interested in learning more about themselves, learning more about how they can work through the things that cancer brings into their lives. And so today is all about cancer fatigue. So I thought that I would start with Peter. As a cancer survivor, I'm wondering if you could speak to this concept of fatigue and how it has impacted your life.
So thank you for that. The way that cancer-related fatigue has impacted my life, first and foremost, is learning about Cancer Fatigue Services and then understanding a bit more about cancer-related fatigue is not just some type of normalized write-off post-symptom that's either post-diagnosis, post-treatment, wherever it might be. It's a series of potential posts. And in that whole thing, my experience, it never got talked about. So I just kind of wrote things off and I thought to myself, well, first diagnosis is 26, second one's 29. Here I am not even 30 and I'm taking naps all the time. Like what's wrong with me? All right, so let's turn coffee into a food group. I'm going to just truck through with a healthy dose of toxic masculinity to tell myself I need to do things and do my best to get through the course of the day, not understanding that there's something legitimately happening, not knowing that it was something that was diagnosable and treatable, but the resources, unfortunately, at that time weren't there, and it's not something that's openly discussed.
I agree completely. When I was visiting you in Toronto, we were talking about fatigue because we were at Cancer Fatigue Services, and I was talking about always having this like in my chest tired feeling just chronically. Even after a great sleep, it's I wake up and I'm like rested, but I still feel tired. So it's nice to speak with other people who are normalizing this because I really feel like you said like we don't talk about this and people feel like I'm supposed to be better, so why am I so tired all of the time?
Dare I even go so far as to suggest that there's sometimes this scope of gratitude missing? Like, you got through your diagnosis, you got through your treatment, you came out the other side. So what is it just being a little tired? You're
Mm.
still alive. You should be grateful. It's like, well, I mean, that's kind of a loaded statement where you need to be in somebody's shoes, be them stylish or otherwise, to really understand what they're going through in the moment. And if it doesn't feel like there's open forum, there's not space to dialogue about what's going on, then who's there to pick up on those cues to say, well, wait a second, maybe there's something really going on there. What can we do about it as besides using conventional responses like get more sleep, take a
Mhm.
nap, here's the way that it's going. Batteries are simple. Not how it works.
No,
That
not at
gratitude
all.
is an awfully low bar too. Like I dare say as a society, we could dream a little bigger than to say, hey, just because you're alive, you just need to be grateful for that fact and not aspire for more. It's too easy to sweep things that are more difficult to control and address under the rug, saying, hey, we did as best we could by you, and now just be happy with where you're at.
I love that.
It's tough.
Yeah, I love that you're saying that, and thank you for recognizing that because it really is like, well, shouldn't you just be happy? You're still here, like you're still alive, like things are you seem to be okay. So this whole fatigue piece, and this is where you jump in, Scott, for sure, is like how did you even start to recognize that fatigue was something that needed to be addressed, other than maybe anecdotally people saying, I just have this chronic tired, and then how did you decide to make this into something bigger?
Yeah, so done a lot of facilitating for different like nonprofits over the years, Young Adult Cancer Canada being one of them. And when we're in these spaces around people at different stages of along the survivorship continuum, you get questions pretty regularly about, hey, I've got this problem or I've got that problem. What do I do with this? What do I do with that? I knew where to refer people for problems H through F. But that next problem, when people were presenting with fatigue, I could talk about what the solutions are, but there was never a space where I could say, you know what you mean? I need to get you in touch with this person. And I'm very fortunate to not be, have my own sort of survivorship experience to this point. But the challenge hit home for me when I was out west. Um, when I was doing my PhD, I'd come back, facilitated an event, and there was someone who approached me at that event and was asking for help with how to address her fatigue. And I tried for like 6 months trying to find a source of support for this person and hit dead end after dead end. And to this, to that end, I even got frustrated with the lack of resources that were available. Um, Fast forward to when we had pivoted, we had opened, and this is summer of 2004. We had just moved into this space and I was reaching out to a bunch of young adults that I had connected with back in 2008, 2009, thinking mostly these would be lighthearted catch ups where, like, hey, I'm doing something cool right now, or I think it's cool. If you happen to know anybody who's tired of being tired, tell them about us. Help us sort of spread the word here. And 5 or 6 of those first 10 phone calls people were still living with fatigue.
Mm.
This was 2000, this is 2024, and I met them in 2008, 2009. And that sort of ripped me out of the ivory tower, out of the textbooks, to say, this is to remind me, this is wholly unaddressed on a societal level. And not that there wasn't one already, but talk about a way to stoke a fire.
Mm.
It
Mhm.
was really disheartening on a personal level and really empowering on a professional level, if that makes sense.
It does, and it's interesting to reflect on my own fatigue and the like that timeline even that you gave. Like, I'm now 11 years into my walk with cancer and still feel tired. And when I would say to people initially, like, "Oh, yeah, I'm really tired," and they're like, "Well, you are getting older." And I was like, "Okay, well, I was 43 at the time. Like, that's not really old." And, "Well, you are, approaching that menopause age." Well, yes, I understand that. Well, you are a mom and a teacher. And there was all of the excuses, but I knew, like, I used to run marathons, so I knew what tired felt like. Like, I know what, like, deep in your core, like, I just did something big felt like. And this was just even a completely different level of fatigue. Hard to explain.
Yeah. And it's, I had one woman who would come in from Northern Ontario. She had just finished her first treatment block with us, dietitian by training, was living with advanced disease and, or is living with advanced disease. And she was in for to redo her cardiopulmonary exercise test. We just finished administering the fatigue questionnaire, the questionnaire side, and said, so and so, kind of about that. How are you actually doing? And she deadpan looks at me. She's like, Scotty, I'm actually so tired. And
Mm.
I had a deer in a headlight moment going, hold it. Like, this isn't working. What do you mean you're so tired? And her response was, no, my fatigue is so much better. I can actually fill my days with things that normally tire me out so that by the time I'm going to bed at night, I'm normally tired, not this like listless, anxiety riddled sort of fatigue state where I felt like I didn't do anything during the day. And now I'm just sort of staring at the ceiling going, what's tomorrow going to be like?
Mm.
Um, it's so different. And even even hearing it characterized like that to me was again similarly reassuring that we're on the right track here. But it's not discussed enough and it's not well understood. So anything we can do, like opportunities like this, to sort of shine a light into some of these darker corners of the conversation and bring some more questions. Super appreciate it.
I'm so glad you're here. This is just such a great conversation because of what she said. Like, now I can do things that I normally wouldn't have been able to do. So what I think I'm hearing is that this was after she had received some of the services at Cancer Fatigue Services.
And
Mm.
it was a combination, right? So when people attend the clinic, we look at the whole person and we try and identify the constellation of factors. On average, is about five driving causes that we've seen so far in the people that have come through. And once we identify those factors, then we work with the person to say, okay, what is the right combination of therapy and what is the right sequence of therapy? Because if you do things out of order, it may undermine success as well, right? So
Mm.
some of the things we offer in-house, other types of services like psychotherapy and nutrition, equally as important as some of the more physical rehab that we provide here, because they're so present, they can be so burdensome and major drivers of the team. But we try and help people connect with local resources. They already have therapist relationships at their local hospital, in their community, wherever they can access services at low or no cost is the priority, especially if they already have that sort of trusting relationship with someone.
So can you walk us through the process, one or both of you? Like, I was at your facility. It's amazing. I was just blown away by the tools that you have, but can you walk us through what it would look like for someone who is seeking that kind of support, whether that's an in-house person or a virtual person?
Sure. Well, it starts off with, of course, anyone who takes a look on our website at cancerfatigueservices.com, they're able to find there's a button that says free consultation. So you find an appointment that's on the Calendly, or the platform, whatever platform it is that we use, and you go in there and you book a time, and you get in touch with one of our team members. Where what they'll do is it's a combination of them filling out a form before they actually get through, so they're able to self-report a little bit more about what their life experience is, working with scales, a couple of different descriptors, and by scales I mean choose, 1 to 10, like where are you for this particular question, etc. And then over the course of approximately 45 minutes during the intake, our team member will confirm everything, making sure that we understand from our side what it is that you're self-reporting, and then really help get a better snapshot of what's going on, where are you at right now, and then look at next steps in process.
From that point, people who are interested in moving forward, we send some clarifying questionnaires around the 10 treatable causes, because the the idea behind it is this is such a complex condition with at least 10 different treatable causes potentially contributing to it. We need to learn a lot more about you before you come in the first time, because otherwise your first meeting with the physician would just be spent in data collection
Mhm.
rather than reviewing the abundance of data that we already have on hand. So then you can get more nuance in the conversation and tease out important details so we can really have a more concrete, again, nuanced understanding of your lived experience, the likely causes and contributing factors, and so on. From that point, we meet as a multidisciplinary team. We review the case. We identify what we think the primary and secondary contributing factors are, put together a complete results pack. We meet people either in person or virtually. The first meeting with the physician has to be in person. In order to be eligible for OHIP coverage, we have to establish the patient clinician relationship in person. But from that point on, things can be either in person or virtual. And for a lot of people, I say this all the time, when you're too tired to get up off the couch, you're going to be
Mhm.
too tired to get into a brick and mortar institute to get all the rest of your.
Mhm.
So being flexible in our approach that way, I think is helping close the care gap for some folks. But yeah, they come back in either physically or virtually. We provide the results, we review it with them, make sure they understand everything. And then we send them away with some thinking exercises, thinking about, okay, these are some of the therapies that we're going to discuss next time. And we have to acknowledge that the therapies that are most effective at addressing fatigue, like there's no drug that consistently improves fatigue. Even the stimulant medications that have been tested by pioneers in the field like Dr. Escalante down to MD Anderson, even the stimulant trials are a mixed bag. They are not nearly as consistent as exercise and cognitive behavioral therapy, as the two behavioral type therapies that really stand out as having the largest and most consistent direction of effect. But what do we know about the average, call it Canadian at this point? We know that not everyone's necessarily comfortable engaging in a psychotherapy, self-help sort of addressing some of your emotional challenges capacity. We also know that a lot of people have a love-hate relationship with exercise.
Mm.
And if these are things that are likely to help and you don't have a good relationship with it, you actually have a lot more behavioral support work to do to identify incremental ways to build these protective behavioral interventions, to build your capacity and your self-confidence so you can engage successfully in them and then reap the rewards of them. So between the results delivery and the shared care planning, people are sent home with a little think time, and then we come back together and they'll be positioned again, and they'll map out what the most actionable, lowest hanging fruit sort of priorities are in the context of their larger fatigue story. And then we plan the route. Everyone's route's going to look a little different based on what's driving their fatigue, what resources they have available to them, what their personal priorities are. And I think the complexity of that example helps reinforce why why I believe it's not better dealt with in society, or
Mm.
helps explain why it's not better dealt with in society.
Mm.
Complex. It takes a lot of time and a little trial and error sometimes to work through an otherwise pretty complex health series of health conditions that a lot of people working on the front line who are incredible,
Mhm.
they don't necessarily have the time or the tools available to them to really dig into this problem the way that it needs to be dug into in order to change someone's fatigue trajectory.
Yeah. You mentioned cognitive behavioral therapy, and I was like, "Ooh, like there's a whole mindset piece to navigating this fatigue." And so to what you just said, like our clinicians, our oncologists, our doctors, they don't have all of those pieces as it seems you do to offer to put together, but it never I guess it never really occurred to me that if I work on my mindset piece in conjunction with having other tools and strategies to help me move my body, then that might actually move me farther away from my fatigue and more towards feeling more empowered, more energized, more energetic. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and to put one thing up front, a big caveat up front, I'm not an expert in all of those things either. I I have my specific skills and training and expertise in exercise physiology and that type of rehab work. That's where the team is strongest, when we have many big, beautiful brains around the table working on the same problem.
And you do have quite a few team members at Cancer Fatigue Services.
Yeah, and amazing colleagues in the community that we lean on.
I was going to echo that, where one of the things that we offer is we offer a peer support that's complementary to either patients who have been through or currently going through Cancer Fatigue Services program, or folks who haven't even, but they just want to learn a little bit more about cancer-related fatigue. I
Mm.
get the privilege to co-facilitate with a fantastic psychotherapist, and what we do is over the course of 6 weeks for once a week and 90 minutes a pop, we usually cap it around 10 folks, and we talk about different types of techniques, learning a little bit more about cancer-related fatigue. But first and foremost, it's designed as a safe space where anyone who participates in there is able to both verbalize maybe some of the things they didn't know that they were able to talk about as it connects to their fatigue, but then being mirrors for one another where we're able to see ourselves. It's like, hey, I've been through that. I know what that feels like. You feel it too. That's fantastic. And providing that as a structure is something that really helps open up the dialogue and normalizes the conversation, where although it's been quote unquote normalized as a side effect after cancer diagnosis, no, it's common and it's treatable. There are ways to deal with it.
Mhm.
And it's in that whole spectrum, like to speak to what you're speaking earlier about cognitive behavioral therapy and mindset and perspective, it's a different type of approach as well, where we as patients, when we're going through the entire cancer experience, we do something more, we take more of a passive role. We are told this is where you show up and you have things that are done to you. You
Mhm.
don't have much to do or say other than show up on time, get through the process, say whatever you need to, and then come back the next time we have to see you, because we've got however many other patients behind you. And then hopefully by the end of it, you're able to ring the bell, which is a totally separate conversation. However, I know that's a shameless free plug for the wonderful work that you're doing, Catherine.
Thank you.
And I'm a super fan. What can I say? And it's you do good stuff.
Thank you.
And once we're done, um, having an opportunity to reflect on it, I now look back at the bell as I got to go and ring to signal that my treatment is done and I'm now on my own.
Yes.
But no one told me that I'm on my own.
Yes.
But when you're coming into a space like Cancer Fatigue Services, there's a different degree of engagement and conversation and collaboration where the patients now get to express like what they want to see out of their outcomes. They're self-reporting in a way that doesn't feel like you're just a number. And I'm
Mm.
not saying that to speak negatively of any of the caretakers. They're fantastic people in the oncology sector, and I love and cherish them for everything that they did for me and my siblings through survivorship. However, there was never this dimension of, okay, well, you're not just showing up and things are gonna get done to you. You are now a part of the process. You take an active role. You have agency, and that is a total mind shift.
Hmm.
And it's something where it's kind of difficult at the first point when I first did it to understand how powerful that is. There's this different sense of control of, wait a second, I'm putting in, I'm engaged, I'm invested in my health in a different way. And it's just so mind-blowing to look at it with hindsight 2020, a year out since becoming a part of this, that it's really shattering. And I hope anyone listening really takes a beat to soak that in because it's powerful stuff.
Mm.
I was just gonna maybe do your job
You
in
go right
I'm
ahead.
sure a way worse way, but I had a question for Peter, if I may. Um,
Absolutely.
Peter, we've talked a lot about the when that locus of control changes, as you're describing. I'm wondering if you could speak to any of the fear of failure that may creep in. And we've chatted about this a lot on the team, but it strikes me as I think a lot of people may shy away from it as well, especially let's say they don't have a good relationship with one of the therapies that a physician is suggesting. Is it at least possible that there's this subconscious fear of like, I actually don't even want to dip my toe into that because I tried that once before and it's not going to work. And therefore, maybe I just need to resign myself to living with this for the rest of my life. Like, I'm scared that's where some people may get if they've come through, seen, learned about what's causing their fatigue, and then confronted what their future, one path their future could take, and then had some insecurity about what that looks like and their ability to engage.
Well, I can say, although Scott, though we just met, um,
You guys are
I should
so funny.
probably, yeah, I'm a stand-up comedian, so there's my shame-free plug, but at least giving a caveat to why my brain functions the way that it does. That is an incredibly layered and beefy question, and I will try to tackle that as best as I can. Um,
Again, it's just shining light into the dark corners, right? Like these are
yeah,
things that we wrestle
Hmm.
with.
Hmm.
So even if we don't have succinct answers, put it out there and get people thinking about their own stuff. That's sort of the intention there. I'll shut up.
absolutely.
Metacognition.
Yep. I, again, only speaking from my own experience, and also having the privilege of being able to connect with, as I like to say, our tribe, when we're able to bounce off of each other what we've been through. The cancer treatment and the experience ends up landing feeling very pass or fail. And the pass is you make it, you get through to the other side. However, this is something where because it's guided by an outside source, it's being the care team, you're that one step back. So if there's someone or something to blame, you're less likely to blame yourself because I didn't do any of this. I didn't have a part in it. I just showed up. And either they flipped on the machine, they got the IV, whatever it might be, however the combination works out, and this is just, totally straight talk. So to have the approach where you now have active engagement, you're now a part of that healing process because you're not getting something plugged into you. You're not getting a machine flipped on that's going to treat what's happening inside of you. Similar to what you go through in the oncology world, depending on what kind of treatment you got, you now have something that you can blame about you. Did I fail?
Mm.
If it's not getting better, is it on me? Did I do enough? And because there is such a conditioned experience with the healthcare system when it comes to oncology, this is foreign territory. So to have that sort of setup that we're able to provide where we can talk the patient through and saying, "Hey, just so you understand, here's kind of what's in store. Let's sit down. How do you feel about it? Is there anything that we need to discuss? What are your approaches? really what gravitates towards you. And similar to the conversation that Catherine and I got to have, and we posted recently about the importance of language and knowing how to identify when someone has been through the cancer experience, we're looking at words like cancer survivor, cancer fighter, cancer thriver. How does the individual identify with that? How do they identify themselves? Do they feel that the people in their lives have assigned that to them and they feel like they need to live up to it? Like, I can speak very transparently. My first experience with going through the process with Cancer Fatigue Services, I'm a guy who goes to the gym 4 to 5 times a week. And I have this mentality of, okay, sense of accomplishment, here's what I do and I know, and it manifests physically in the way that my body changes based on the output that I do and how I move all those parts. But then to have access to something that is now attached to my cancer journey and it's a physical output, the expectations I have on myself were massive. And it didn't even register that they were happening in the moment. It was just put my head down, barrel through, get to the end of it, and feel my feels after the fact. But I was also one of the people at the forefront. So I know enough to know that I can now communicate that as part of my role and help other folks to make sure that they feel that there is that agency, but there's not an expectation.
Hmm.
You're able, like, you're going to do what you're going to do, and the importance is that the data comes back. So we help manage, but we set things up and say it to you in the font and dialect that you need, so you're most responsive, and that intimidation and fear melts away.
And there is, thank you for that. There's so much fear. Like my brain is going in about 20 different directions. One, fear of failure. Two, fear of doing it wrong. Three, fear of, oh, balloons. Look at that. Well, that's fun. I mean, we are
It's a
having,
heavy topic to start celebrating
we're
like
we're
that, but
just
okay.
lightening things up over here. Um,
Even Zoom knows it's important.
Zoom is like, we need to talk about this. Um, Fear of upsetting your medical team, that you're doing something that you shouldn't be doing, the shoulds that we put on our shoulders. And so, and also and I hear this so much in my coaching, like I don't have anybody to talk to who gets it. People don't understand. So, Scott, I appreciate your transparency that you have never been through a walk with cancer. However, you have done a great deal of work in that field and have an understanding of it. But for people who have like no understanding of cancer, to sit in a room with someone and try to navigate, like I saw the bike, like getting on the bike and the exercise equipment and not being able to say how you're actually feeling, or feeling like it's just so much. And the people that are there aren't going to get it. They don't get me because they don't know what this looks like. That's a huge barrier, I think, to people stepping into saying, first of all, I'm tired, because everyone's like, yeah, we're all tired. And then asking for the help, or knowing to ask for the help on how to resolve or move through that fatigue.
Yeah, I mentioned earlier there's an element for some people, it may seem more straightforward if it's I'll call it a simpler case. I don't like to generalize like that, um, but for many people, there can be an element, a genuine element of trial and error. The point is that we're going to fail forward with you,
Mm.
and we'll use the best available evidence we have, what we think are the right combination of steps in front of you, and we'll help you take. You can only do so much. I can't physically pump Peter's legs onto a cycle, but I can stand behind it and cheerlead the shit out of that session. The We support you through that process, and we don't go anywhere. So when something comes up and something changes, whether it's a life circumstance or a health status or what have you, we're there to help reconfigure. Okay, here's the new reality. We've tried a little of this. This seemed to work. This element didn't. How do we rejig things so that it fits into your life, addresses your needs, and we're able to sort of move forward in a hopeful direction? I think a lot of people are quick to say, give different medications a chance or adjust doses of medications when the first dose isn't working or the first type of med isn't working, to switch approaches. We're a lot less I think as a society, we may be a lot less inclined to give these other treatment approaches the same sort of grace
Mm.
to say, hey, you know what? That first therapist I spoke to, I really didn't connect with him or her. And maybe it's not the therapeutic approach that isn't appropriate. Maybe it was just that specific person that
Yeah.
I didn't jive with. So there is some resilience required to find the path forward. And I say to people all the time that like we just need to help people be more stubborn in the problem. There is a life of energy at the other end of this thing. And most people can get there. We've seen it time and again. Sometimes it just takes being a stubborn SO whatever to get there, you know?
Yeah.
And that's where having a team that genuinely has seen hundreds of people come through and have similar challenges, we're in a position to help you navigate that. And why the lived experience that Peter's talking about, sharing around the table with Luana, the psychotherapist from Women's College, special shout out to her because she's amazing in every kind of way. Having people like Peter on the team, having access to your peers' voices and experience. We're not trying to normalize things in a, hey, you just need to normalize fatigue sort of way, but
Mm.
it's super common and there are very similar lived experiences that repeat themselves across different people's stories. And you can take comfort in knowing that someone else is able to navigate that same life circumstance and make it through and overcome that sort of that specific challenge.
Mhm.
Yeah. What we can do to destigmatize and empower people to push through because there is a life with energy.
Yeah. Do you have, I might be putting you on the spot here. Do you have any specific examples, not necessarily like the specific things that people did, but specific examples of um, clients? So do you call them clients that have come to
People,
you? People, the people that have come to you that sort of the progress that they have made, the things that they're now able to do that they couldn't do before. People like tangible results, right? Like I never used to be able to carry my laundry up the stairs. Now I can carry my laundry and fold it and put it away. Like, is that sort of the kinds of things we're talking about?
absolutely. There was I'm always reminded by this one conversation I had with a gentleman last summer. He was teaching me things, which was amazing. He, we know there are fatigue measurement tools that are really multifocal. So understanding like physical, emotional, cognitive fatigue, understanding the different types of fatigue, but I've never had someone present and explain these different types, their experience with these different types of fatigue so clearly. And it was interesting to see the timeline for when some of these specific types of fatigue started to resolve. This particular person's physical fatigue started to resolve first. And he was able to tackle construction projects around the house that he'd been postponing for 2 or 3 years. He was able to get back to maintaining focus long enough that and had the sort of mental fortitude or stamina to engage in the work that he wanted to be doing professionally. I mean, not household projects. But the thing that took the longest was the way he first described it is I used to be a real social butterfly, real extrovert, always the life of the party, and found himself that he had like a 5 minute window, a 10 minute window where he could be in a room with more than 5 or 6 people and not be totally overstimulated and need to like shut down and remove himself from that circumstance. That took longer to resolve. So
Mm.
there was certain aspects of his fatigue, and other people will be different. But for him, there were certain aspects of his fatigue that resolved meaningfully in the course of 3 months. I think we were probably talking at about the 6 month mark, where by that point it had already been better long enough that he already had some achievements that he was able to humble brag about, which heck yes. But he said there was some other aspects of his fatigue experience that were persisting, getting better, but were persisting. So then you need to again be more stubborn than the problem. Okay, well, what are the resources? What are the supports can we help connect you with or put in place to make sure we cross those thresholds to the fullest extent that we can?
Mm. So it's a very holistic approach, very like wrapped
Has,
around
has to
holistic
be.
approach. Yeah.
And these things don't exist in isolation. When you
No.
dig into the literature, you see uh, fatigue, insomnia, and pain co-presenting very often in people. Then you see fatigue, more often depression than anxiety, but fatigue, depression, and pain
Mhm.
coexisting. When we look at the different causes of fatigue, there are very clear mechanistic ties between a lot of the treatable causes, almost all of them.
Mm.
So when one thing happens, and this is where the chicken and the egg comes into it a little bit. If you have emotional challenges, is the fatigue causing the emotional challenges or are the emotional challenges causing the fatigue? And then is there a relationship to hormone imbalance? Is there a relationship to sleep disturbances? Is there a relationship to the chronic pain that you're in? The answer is almost always yes, because if these things are present in your life, they are likely reinforcing each other. So if you're only acting to address one of the treatable causes, you're likely missing another bunch of factors
Yeah.
that are reinforcing that first thing that you're trying to address. So you have to work at the human level.
Yeah. It's like our bodies, all of our body systems function in conjunction with each other. And when you talk about hormones, people are like, "What do you mean that part of my body is actually driven by hormones?" Well, no, these things we don't work in isolation. So it makes sense that if someone's having multiple um, concerns in their life, fatigue, anxiety, even social withdrawal, that it's all connected to a root cause. Maybe the root cause is cancer, but then it's the systemic results of all of that we need to. What I'm hearing is that we need to be addressing.
And I
So
really love, Scott, that you used the example from the one patient where they were able to present in the three different dimensions where some folks may automatically presume when you talk about cancer-related fatigue, they think just physical. No,
Hmm.
fatigue is mental, fatigue is emotional, and these are quantifiable experiences that can sometimes be the driving force or maybe the leading foot, but more often than not, exactly like what both of you said, things don't function in isolation. And each individual is going to present things in, although sometimes um, more typical or sometimes common combinations, everybody's unique. And whatever's happening within our life circumstances as we're being presented, we have an opportunity to detangle them and look at them for their unique parts and then figure out, all right, well, A plus B equals C. Well, what about D, E, and F? Are they just on the periphery, or are we even talking about letters at this point? Should we look at numbers? Like there's
Hmm.
so many
Hmm.
levels, and being able to be a part of something that helps provide answers and gives people back that energy where it's the ability to physically function, it's having that mental energy come back, it's having that emotional battery recharged, and the suddenly the boundaries are bigger than they were before. It's life changing, and it's a privilege to watch it happen.
Beautiful. I think that um, healing post cancer, social, emotional, physical, all of it is just not talked about enough, and people really are left to figure it out on their own. And there's no tangible recognition of the efforts that you put in when you're just, I think maybe I'll just start walking around the block because they say exercise is going to help me, but how do you know if it's helping you? Maybe I'll change how I'm eating, maybe, but there's no scale of what is working and what isn't. And so it becomes very defeatist, almost like, well, I'm trying things and it's not working. And validation, we live in we require a lot of validation society, but when everything has been, the rug has been pulled out from underneath you with cancer, I find, speaking for myself, that having someone to validate, as you are actually doing for me today about my own fatigue that I still carry, that there are things, and it's not just me, and it's not in my head, and there are ways that things can be done, and you're not crazy. And no, it's not because you're getting older or you have 3 kids or whatever. That really, I feel that really like elevates the conversation, but it also validates, and probably for the listeners, validates like, this is bigger than me, and I can try things, and I can go forwards and backwards on them, but with support. And I say that all the time, with support, that having a plan, a program, a system, someone to talk to just will make the efforts maybe feel a little bit less like an effort.
I think there's a lot to be said. How do I frame this? Going back to the resilience piece and the trying something and it maybe or maybe not working for you, and then having paths of, okay, it might just not for me, does this not work for me, or can I, with the right support, persist and be successful in addressing the problem? As you were talking, sort of two stories, and it kind of relates to your previous example about how people have experienced some success after trying and been able to do things. The two stories, and I'm sure Peter's familiar with both. Two stories that come to mind are, there was a young woman diagnosed in her pediatric years who is now in her mid 30s, working in the oncology space. Tremendous human being, also a tremendous skeptic, and that's really important to this particular story, because when I've known her for a while. I had first spoken to her about what we do. She's like, Scott, I walk all the time. I walk my dog 45 minutes once or twice a day. There's no way that changing my physical activity is going to really make a difference. And sure enough, the added precision that we can apply to an exercise prescription through the advanced testing and stuff that we do here, she was back within 8 weeks and her fatigue had improved. And it wasn't, she had been walking for years. She had been physically active for years. And it wasn't that exercise didn't work for her, is that you needed a more precise approach to remodel the tissue in a way that it actually unlocked the benefits of exercise for that particular person. And the other example is another young woman. I think she was diagnosed, 2 diagnoses in her late 40s, early 50s, and high-tech job, lives about 4 hours from here. At intake, she was already walking 30 minutes a day and doing like yogic deep breathing routinely. Still fatigued enough that she was unable to return to work. And she's now returning to work, which is, she was a couple of years post second diagnosis before she made it to us. And again, she was already probably meeting physical activity guidelines when she first came to us. Through this more medicalized, albeit more medicalized approach, more precision medicine based approach that we adopt, that can be the difference between a frustrating experience and a surprising experience, where something that you thought wasn't going to work for you, you actually can realize some of the benefits of some of these approaches. And I guess if there was a take home from it, it would be just don't give up. Like even if you had tried some of the things that we talk about when you Google treatments for cancer fatigue and you say, oh, I've already gone through this checklist, don't give up. be more stubborn than the problem, approach it from a new direction, and there's likely a way that some of these things can actually help.
Mm. Mm. So if people wanted to find you, I know where you are because I've been to your amazing space.
I'm right here.
You're right here on the podcast. But if people wanted to find cancer fatigue services online, in the socials, I don't expect people. Can people just physically walk into your office? Better they have an appointment before they go in.
Oh, great question. So we're located, our physical clinic is located in North York, Yonge and Shepherd, right off the 401, right at the intersection of a couple subway lines here in Toronto. But because we are a specialist clinic, people do need a referral from their oncologist, physician, nurse practitioner in order to access our services, in order to be eligible for OHIP covered care. Having said that, we don't want to discourage people if they can't get a referral letter to us first. We go both ways. So if people find us first and say, I need what you're selling, sign me up for this, we can help them go get the referral letter from the doctor. And we can be the squeaky wheel. Again, if you're too tired to get up off the couch, you're probably too tired to be chasing people for answers. So we try and take some of that healthcare administrative burden off of people's plates. So if you find us first and you don't have the referral letter yet, don't slow down. Run headlong at the problem. Walk briskly if we're not running. At the problem, we can help you with those administrative pieces, getting the referral letters. We can be the squeaky. We can take on that part of the burden. Or if you're a physician referring someone to us, then that cuts down the time to first visit and some potential relief dramatically.
Amazing. I love that you can reverse that to help people.
There's too much, right? Imagine, so if there's 10 treatable causes, in order to get all of those assessed, are we expecting people bounce around to 10 different specialists?
Yeah.
In a community, people are living with chronic fatigue here. Most people don't have the capacity or the support they need to get around, to make all of those appointments, manage the rescheduling, manage the complex schedules, and so on. So it's almost difficult to initiate the process unless there's a centralized place to look at the whole person and the breadth of need rather than treating someone like a specific organ system.
Right. So I will put your information in the show notes about your website. Peter, can you maybe speak to the socials of where people can find you guys?
Sure. Yeah. So we're accessible on all social channels. Generally, it's the same at Cancer Fatigue Services for both Instagram. You're looking at TikTok. What we have available through LinkedIn as well as on Facebook. So we're available on all those different platforms accordingly. Plus, if you're feeling even just a little bit curious to learn a bit about cancer-related fatigue, you can visit our website at cancerfatigueservices.com. And we have an option there. It's called the Cancer Fatigue Analyzer. And it's a self-reporting tool that is designed to help educate people, where you're able to put in your information and get a little bit of a snapshot based on what you provide as to where things might be at, and hopefully demystify a couple of things, and it's less intimidating, more approachable, and get into that headlong charge forward, be it at a quick run or a brisk walk, or like a healthy stride, whatever that stride looks like.
Wonderful. I will put all of that in there also. And shout out to our friend Leo at Cancer Fatigue Services, who does really great reels. He really, really does. And so if you are, as Peter mentioned, like Instagram and TikTok, Leo has lots of educational videos on there that people can look at. And you may get a cameo by myself or by Peter in there.
Sure.
Scott, I'm assuming you've been in some of the videos at some point in time, but he's
I
the best.
Quite literally, I am one of those archaic folks that doesn't engage too much with social media. So when I hear about these great things, I have to physically run down the hall to Leo's office and say, show me this thing that people are talking about.
Yeah. Well, and so the whole thing in this podcast is let's get people talking about cancer fatigue and
Right.
about how they can find some resolution. Now, Peter, I know you go out into the community as an advocate and you reach out and speak to various hospitals or doctors, like how, if there are professionals who are interested in connecting with cancer fatigue services, what does that look like?
Absolutely. If, of course, you can reach out by email. That's the greatest way to reach out. It's my name, so peter.linnaeus@cancerfatigueservices.com, or you could just email to advocacy@cancerfatigueservices.com. Both of those come directly to me, so we can strategize. And just as a self-fulfilling, selfish plug slash shout out, at the time of recording for this podcast, just yesterday, we were lucky enough to have a segment aired on CTV Health. And if folks want to get a chance to take a look and see a little bit of a walkthrough of the office space, as reported by Pauline Chan, which is absolutely wonderful, you get an opportunity to see what we're all about and get a sort of a sense of specs in real time and what things look like. And you'll get to see these two faces as well, and what it is that we're all about. And it's available on YouTube, so it's easy. Just look on CTV Health.
The wonderful Leo just pushed it to the website, our homepage this morning.
Oh, amazing. Yeah.
Then
Yeah.
there's
So you
that
can
way
find it
too.
there too.
And there's that too. I will link that also. I have already watched it. It's an absolutely fantastic interview and a great place for people to go. And I will say, I did physically go to Toronto and meet Peter and walk through the facility, through the space. And it's very calm. It's very quiet. It's not overwhelming. There's not, bright colors everywhere that for some people are just too much. It's just very, I found it very grounding and I was able to be there and not feel overwhelmed. So I think that's important. That's a whole other conversation that we had with Leo when I was visiting. But um, do take a look at, I have a video also somewhere in my socials of my time at Cancer Fatigue Services. And it's just for the listeners, it's just something different. It's a different way to look at what you're feeling and how you're feeling, and an opportunity to open up a dialogue with your primary practitioner, your oncologist, about this service that is actually available to people. I've spoken to my own oncologist about it. And hopefully, Peter, you'll be able to get into that hospital and spread the word, because as we opened with, fatigue is not talked about enough, and it's not acknowledged as a real, genuine piece of the post-cancer treatment process. And it really does need to be talked about so that people can feel that it's normalized and not feel like they're living in this space of nobody understands what they're feeling.
I have to similarly plug the multitude of professionals and teams across the GTA that we've met with so far, from the different psychosocial oncology programs and opportunities and invitations to speak at grand rounds events, lunch and learn type formats. The reception reinforces the importance.
Mhm.
So when we first engage with people and they're like, "Hmm, yeah, of course this makes sense. Of course we need support. Forget about cancer fatigue services. Of course we need support because there is no other support. There is no support for cancer related fatigue. So those sort of aha moments are going to be consistent when we're first meeting with these amazing professionals across the region. And sometimes expecting change is slower than we'd like, but the needle is moving. And we have had some early wins for some incredible teams that we are actively cultivating to bring care, this specific kind of care, closer to where people are. So
Amazing.
there is some movement in the space there, and it's largely because of how receptive the oncology community is to realizing that, okay, we've known about this for a long time. We haven't actually done much about it.
Yeah.
Maybe now's the time.
And so someone who's listening, maybe they'll just take that message to their doctor themselves and say, I know of this thing. I know of this place. And I think that it would be good for you to know about it also. And that's how
I
we spread the
really,
magic.
I love it. I love it. to cycle back to the question you asked Peter about if you're a clinician and are interested in more information, we would love to do, whether it's you and your office neighbor or you and your team, anything that you need in terms of information from us. We are very happy to meet in one-on-one, small groups, larger group settings to tell you about what might be possible for the people you're serving and how we can unburden your caseload in a
Mm.
way that actually makes your life easier by handling this specific aspect of care and not referring back to you for all of the things that you are in charge of.
So no more, I don't actually have an answer for that. And now it can be, I actually know where I can send you for that.
Exactly.
And if
Perfect.
there's opportunity for any of the folks that are listening and it's within the clinician realm, come for a tour. If you're
Mm.
capable of doing it, by all means, love to host you. Where, as Scott had mentioned, we're highly accessible in the North York, Northern Toronto area. And as I've found really great success with and just being very direct, send us your tired. That's what
Mm.
we're doing. Send us your tired.
Perfect. Perfect. Now, Peter, you've already answered this question on a previous podcast, so I'm going to defer the question to Scott. Um, this is always the last question I like to ask people when they're on the podcast, and that is, what does living to thrive mean to you?
I would say living with the intention of achieving greater.
Mm.
We may not always all be there all the time, but it's living with the intention of getting there. Whether you're at the bottom of a lull or you're at a peak and everything's looking sunshiny and sparkly rainbow adorned, always looking forward, never accepting status quo as how things just have to be, and living with the intention of achieving as best you can for yourself.
Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you so much for answering that question. It's sometimes it puts people on the spot, and but I love
I
that.
was deer in the headlight for a minute there.
Yeah, that's a whole other conversation about how people go into their left brain to try to find answers. But thank you for that. And thank you, Scott and Peter, for being here today. It's truly been a very enlightening conversation. I think that the listeners are definitely going to take some information away with them. And hopefully they will reach out to you. And if not, they will at least have the conversation with their primary care practitioner about you and what you are offering to people who are living with cancer. So again, a very big thank you for being here today. Any final words from either of you?
Just
I
appreciation, my friend. Thanks for giving us a space. Thanks for making time for this, giving attention to this. We appreciate you.
You are
there's
very
a
welcome.
there was a quote that I came across today that now feels very appropriate when asking the question about what does thriving look like to you. And the quote that I read was, "We start with a start date, we finish with a finish date, and we have a dash in between. Make the most of the
Mm,
dash."
beautiful.
I
Make the
love it.
most of the dash. I love
Make the
that.
most of the dash.
I love that. Thank you for sharing that. And again, thank you both for being here, for taking the time. And I look forward to the opportunity to come back to Cancer Fatigue Services and hang out with my new best friends and
Anytime.
and to spread the word about what you are doing here in Canada. But I know there are people that outside of Canada that are listening to this, and um, perhaps this will motivate them also to find some support for their fatigue.
Absolutely.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And to the listeners, if you found what you learned here to be helpful, Please share it with other people that you know who could benefit from this episode. Sharing helps Scott and Peter and myself to support more people who are living with cancer and to help them move from survivor to thriver, and in this case, to perhaps mitigate their fatigue. And you can go ahead and subscribe to the podcast wherever you are listening. Follow me on YouTube so you can see the video version of the podcast. And I would love for you to head to the show notes and get your name on my email list so that you can stay up to date on everything Living to Thrive with Cancer, future podcast episodes, and other resources that are available to you. Thank you again, Peter and Scott, for being here today. And thank you, listeners, for being here. Have a wonderful day. Thank you so much for being here today. I hope you have a beautiful rest of the day, and may you live your life to your fullest, follow your heart, and thrive in all you do.